Hello guys, welcome to Talking News. Please subscribe and like right now so you don't forget. Hit that notification bell if you would like notifications whenever I have a new upload. So right now, gosh, things are just getting a little bit more crazy with all these cases that are coming out. But I definitely can't keep up, but I'm going to try my best to, inform you guys a little bit. Anywho, we're going to start off with Lori Vallow. As you guys know, this is the mom that is just not giving up the whereabouts of her children after having a welfare check on JJ by the grandparents, because they said they have not seen him since September or really even talked to him since August. And the grandparents are the Woodcocks here, which we'll go over in another video. So Lori was extradited from Hawaii back to Idaho. And good Lord, there's a lot of pictures. I have some video for you where you can see her kind of smirking, acting as if, this isn't a big deal, that nobody knows where her two missing children are. And her attorneys are seen trying to make Lori look like a victim. Now, if the mother wants to, keep her kids away from the public, that is her right. But the problem is there's other family members involved. She's not just keeping the children away from the public. She's keeping the children away from the family members that love the children, and they're very worried. So as I mentioned, Lori did make it back to Idaho to face some pretty serious charges. She's accused of also being in a cult. Family members are saying that she basically become very obsessed with Chad Daybell's writings while they were both still married, mind you. And I want to remind you guys to go check out part 1, 2, and 3 of the Vallow videos that I put up. Now part 2, I wasn't able to go through and finish that. I decided not to when we started talking about the religion. So there is a whole bunch of deaths that are linked to this couple. Even something that's even more suspicious is the fact that both of their spouses passed away. Two totally different circumstances. And that's not including a few other deaths that they're looking into. And so with that going on and the kids being missing and Lori refusing to tell anybody where the children are, well, you can see why that's an issue and why they're suspicious. While Lori, as I'll show you shortly, keeps accusing media of bringing up this just crazy story and making up everything. Now, one thing that more charges can be brought up, pending the investigation. So we can expect most likely a few more charges to come, especially when Lori Vallow is collecting Social Security payments meant for the children. It's going in her account, and this is why she was residing in Hawaii, and that's after months of these children being missing. Now, one of the biggest arguments, which we're fixing to go over, is over the bond of being reduced for Lori Vallow / Daybell. Ultimately, guys, the bail was reduced from $5 million to $1 million. But she was ordered that if she was released on bail, that Lori would have to wear a GPS ankle tracker. She would have to surrender her supposedly expired passport. And of course, she is not allowed to leave Madison or its nearest counties. So a lot of people believe that she's going to get out. Now get this, Chad Daybell, the guy she's married to now, whose wife died unexpectedly, how much money does he have left after gaining, I think it's 430,000, I've heard 450 from his wife's life insurance, guys. Now you'll hear that Lori has like 3 defenders. That is not cheap, guys. And as you watch Lori in a courtroom, notice she is smirky, cocky, and she's very confident that it seems that she will get away with whatever she's trying to get away with. So here's a clip that we'll listen to and then we'll talk about it.
Title 19, Chapter 29, and Idaho Criminal Rule 46.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we are asking that the court today set bail in the amount of $10,000 consistent with what Lori's attorney in Hawaii requested. In the event that the court is not inclined to set bond in the amount of $10,000, we are asking that the court consider setting a bond no higher than $50,000 in this case. Lori is presumed innocent as she stands before the court today. The fact that she is presumed innocent is not a loose guideline. It's a foundational principle of the American criminal justice system. Under both the 8th Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 6 of the Idaho Constitution, excessive bail is prohibited. Judge, you are the gatekeeper in this case. You're the guardian of the presumption of innocence and the constitutional rights afforded to Lori. This is not a court of public opinion. This is a court of law.
Here's Lori's attorney trying to manipulate the system. She knows clearly that those kids are still missing. But this is where they start to touch on using, treating Lori like a victim. Continuing.
Are we going to let our citizens' rights be dictated by what appears in the media? Bail must be set in an amount that assures Lori's appearance in court and is commensurate with the charges that she is actually facing today in court. A $5 million bond is unreasonable, it's astronomically excessive, and is the functional equivalent of holding Lori without bond. This is a violation of Lori's constitutional rights.
Okay, guys, so her defense attorneys really have a job ahead of them because unless they know something we don't, they have to prove that the children are safe and okay. So right now, Lori is facing desertion charges. Those are the most recent ones anyways, some of them. And it can hold up to 14 years each. So right now she has 2 charges. So while defense tries to play down how serious this case is, in the future we can see potential child homicide. My gosh, with the Kelsey Barrett case. So we learned that you don't have to have the remains in order to prosecute. So there definitely could be more charges to come. Okay, so back on this case, I want to get back on this one. So what you're about to hear come out of this attorney's mouth is that in her decade of practicing law, she's basically never seen this before. I can guarantee you that she's never seen a case like this before. So, I mean, that's probably why she's never seen that before. I'm sorry, guys. I am biased. When it comes to defense attorneys, I think they're like the lowest scum of the earth in most cases. Now, watch Lori Vallow's face as her attorney speaks, and watch very close because she's just so confident that she is above everybody in that room.
I can tell the court that in my almost decade of practicing law as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney, I have never seen the crime of desertion charged. This is because abandonment issues are generally dealt with under the Child Protection Act, not the criminal code. But even under the desertion criminal statute, which Lori has been charged with and faces these charges here today, the maximum fine, as Your Honor said today in court, that can be ordered is $500. Yet her bail is set at $5 million, 10,000 times the maximum fine in this case. In a recent Madison County murder case, the bond was set at $1 million. In the 5 counts the court read today, charged in the criminal case, there is not one allegation of a crime of violence. A bond set this high denies Lori due process and fundamentally deprives her of her ability to meaningfully participate in the defense of these allegations she faces. It is clear that the government just needed to find a charge that would fit in this case because of all of the media attention surrounding this matter.
So there you go. Another blame game. Blaming media. Suggesting that also the government is wanting to just find anything to hold her back because of the media coverage. It wouldn't be the fact that she was being investigated for the well-being of her children and she didn't produce them at that time, and then later they actually had to chase her down in Hawaii because she didn't care what people were thinking, and show proof that the children were all right, and took off and married Chad in Hawaii. Now, mind you, Lori knew that there were concerns about them children, but she didn't care. Just like if you go and watch the video, whenever her husband was shot, she had the same behavior. She didn't care. She carried on with her life, which tells you that she's not fazed by anything that should be considered devastating. She's not concerned with the law, and she's not concerned about the well-being of these children most of all. In fact, those children most likely seen a lot that happened that day that Charles was shot. And the kids didn't even come first as far as getting, making sure they had counseling or anything like that. She went on as if nothing ever happened. Now, seeing how she acts in those type of situations says a lot. A lot of people say, why is all this going on? Is this for attention? Is this a game? We'll talk a little bit about that later, but let's continue with this courtroom discussion here.
The last thing that should happen is to allow this case to be tried in the media and to allow public opinion and rampant speculation to dictate how this case proceeds through the judicial system. Considering the purpose of bail, to which Lori is entitled as a matter of right, Idaho Criminal Rule 46, as Your Honor referenced, lists the factors that the court should consider when determining the appropriate bail amount to set in this case. Pursuant to those factors, Lori's bond should simply be reduced in the amount requested because she has no criminal history whatsoever. In fact, Lori took the initiative while she was in Hawaii to contact law enforcement and say, in the event that a warrant issues, she will voluntarily turn herself in. Police did not afford her that opportunity to do so. They created a spectacle out of the situation when they knew that Lori had contacted law enforcement and indicated that she would turn herself in. She waived extradition in this case. She did not fight returning to Idaho. She has hired 3 criminal defense attorneys from 2 different law firms, and she is dedicated to vigorously defending against these allegations.
She knows for certain that she did reach out to the police, but that doesn't make it right. The police have given her opportunities. It's not about whether she reached out to police to turn herself in. It's about her reaching out to the police and letting them know whether or not JJ and Ryan are safe and okay. It is to produce the children. This defense team is very big on distracting you from the topic, and that is, why is Lori Vallow in this predicament anyway? And she's there because there's no children. We also learned that she is broke right now. She is not working, and so I guess Chad's going to spend that big lump of sum of money trying to keep Lori from behind bars. It would be so much easier if you just produced the kids. It would be a lot cheaper too. So why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they taking that route? Well, there's only 2 reasons I can think of, and this is speculation, of course. Is one, they're fixing to sue, off of this while gaining spotlight. And that's if there's a chance the children are safe. And then 2, if the children, if something happened to them, well, they're just manipulating. So something very dirty going on with these 2, no doubt.
We, as her attorneys, also agree to assure Lori's presence in court. Chad, Lori's husband, has returned to Idaho to his home of his own volition, and Lori and Chad maintain a residence locally. That home was purchased over 5 years ago, or approximately 5 years ago. Chad, their children, their children's spouses, and their grandchildren are all located locally. Furthermore, Lori's passport is expired. She has no flight risk whatsoever, and this assertion that when this investigation began, when there was initial law enforcement contact, that she fled to Hawaii is unequivocally false. That was a planned move. We believe that the evidence will show that, will establish that. It was a planned move to a place that she had previously lived, and she moved to the exact same neighborhood in which she previously resided.
Okay, I don't think these attorneys realize that nobody's disputing that it wasn't a planned move, but they continued to go knowing that the police were talking to them, that they had warrants. They left abruptly without producing the children, thought they were above the law, didn't care what anybody thought. They did what they wanted to. So whenever preliminary hearings begin, prosecution should be able to prove that easily. That's what I think anyways. But you'll see prosecution shortly speak, and they just really don't seem to be prepared. These kids need a prepared attorney, and sadly, either he was nervous, I don't know what was going on with him, but you'll see shortly what I'm talking about.
Furthermore, Lori's history demonstrates that she has a consistency in her residences. She lived in Austin, Texas for almost 20 years, worked at the same salon for 15 years. She then moved to Chandler, Arizona, where she resided for 5 years in the same house. She worked as the director for Broadway Kids, an organization that puts on summer camps for children, and she also taught group fitness. Between 2014 and 2018, she lived in Hawaii until she returned there this fall. Lori's history demonstrates that she has consistent, long-term residence and a long-term employment in those places that she's lived.
So this defense attorney kind of left out what was the reasons for her leaving these places that she was so consistent in.
Further, Your Honor, there is probably no greater assurance that Lori will appear before this court and any other court assigned to preside over this case because of the droves of people that she has following her every move, even before she was charged. She has TV cameras in her face. She has people following her. It is built-in pretrial monitoring to a level I have never seen before. It's more effective than any sort of surveillance that law enforcement could put on her. She could not go anywhere without cameras and people scrutinizing her every single move. She poses no flight risk whatsoever. She is intent on defending against these allegations and proving that she is innocent, despite the fact it's the state's burden to prove her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. If the intent of the high bond as originally set in this case was to ensure that Lori was transported back to Idaho, she is back. And as I stated, she is eager to defend against these charges. Regardless as to whether she has been tried and convicted in the court of public opinion, Your Honor, here today, Lori is innocent. Lori will absolutely...
Okay, so this defense attorney says Lori is innocent without a doubt. Yet, she doesn't mention that she's seen Lori's kids with her own eyes. Why? Now, what if in pretrial those kids were okay and she had been hiding them out while they went off to get married? Well, there's still charges to come because you can tell that she's manipulating the system. And that just is, we have to wait and see what happens. We still have to give her the benefit of the doubt that the kids are okay. But the fact that They give her a choice to tell them, say, look, we need to know where the kids are. You're in serious trouble here because you're not working with us. But the only way that we're going to know anything is, so the only way to really know is whenever preliminary trials start. I mean, this woman is facing some charges. She's not produced these children. So this is driving me crazy. It really is. I'm trying to figure out if the kids are really okay, like Chad says, that they are safe here on Earth, what's the reasoning behind not exposing the children? Are they looking to make money off of this? Are they looking for spotlight off of this? Are they looking to protect their children? Because really it's not. It's just causing more of a problem. Or are the kids are they endangered? Okay, they're going to continue to talk about why she shouldn't be able to get bond.
Absolutely abide by any pretrial release conditions, any sort of monitoring that the court requires, but there is simply no basis for a bond this high, and it must be reduced given the charges that she is facing. For those reasons, Your Honor, we would ask that you grant the defendant's request to reduce bond.
Ms. Elcox, just so I'm clear, if your client were to bond out, I don't need her address, but where would be her expected place of residence be?
She'll be residing locally, Your Honor. I can provide that address to the court under seal if the court would like to do so, but given the media attention, I would rather not put that on the record.
I understand. Thank you. Mr. Wood, do you wish to be heard?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll address counsel's comments first on how we got here and why the bond for the bail was set at what it's at. This case didn't start as a criminal case, Your Honor. It started as a report of 2 missing children who are still missing. November 25th, Rexburg Police, late in the day, get notice that this young child is missing. Within 24 hours, they respond. When they respond, they're given verifiably false information by the defendant. And so the next day they obtain warrants and to search the residence for the child. And at that point, the defendant is gone. Now they say it's a planned move. Maybe they did plan to move to Hawaii. However, they clearly left very quickly as soon as they were contacted by law enforcement. The vast majority of their belongings were still in that apartment. And so the investigation continued. A Child Protection Act was filed, and an order was given for Lori to produce the children, for the defendant to produce the children, which she did not do. I'll address this issue that she informed law enforcement that she would turn herself in. It's kind of hard to trust someone to turn themselves in on a warrant when a simple welfare check caused that person to leave. Your Honor, as counsel stated, Idaho Criminal Rule 46 lists the factors to be considered at setting bail. So we'll go down through those. The defendant's employment status and history. As far as we're aware, she's not presently employed. No argument can be made that she's at a risk of losing employment. Their financial condition.
So you can see here, she thinks it's quite amusing and funny for some reason, but we have no clue what they think is so funny. So the prosecution, as you can tell, I can't tell if he's nervous or if he's just not prepared, but he's trying to make the judge see that she is not reliable, which we all know. We've watched her through the media, whether the media is covering 100% truth or not. There's a lot of truth to it. But also here he's about to touch on Chad Daybell's lump sum of life insurance money he got after his wife Tammy passed away, which most of us are pretty sure. I can't prove it, but I'm thinking he's going to have to put a lot out on this case in order to keep her out of jail. And I know that $400,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when you're dealing with a case like this, a high-profile case with 3 defense attorneys, oh my gosh. I can't imagine what they're paying out. Anyways, I'm going to continue the video.
We are aware that the defendant's new husband received a substantial sum of life insurance proceeds from the death of his wife last October. Obviously, those funds provide them with the ability to relocate quickly and to stay away from Idaho, which we believe they've already done. The nature and extent of the defendant's family relationships. The defendant's only family here is her new husband. And it's important for the court to consider that at a bail reduction hearing in Hawaii, very recently, the defendant's attorney represented to the court that her husband lived in Hawaii, not in Idaho. Now, we understand that the defendant does have a house here, close to here. However, the fact that the defendant represented to a Hawaii court that they lived in Hawaii shows that they consider their ties not in Idaho, but in Hawaii. And in terms of her past residences, if we go back to the last year, it gets a little more concerning. In regards, since this last summer, the defendant has lived in Arizona, Idaho, and Hawaii. And quite frankly, the circumstances under which she left Arizona, which was soon after the killing of her estranged husband by her brother, and the circumstances in which she left Idaho, which was the same night Rexburg police did a welfare check on her, give the state serious concern that she is a flight risk. Factor 4 is the defendant's character and reputation. Since this last summer, there has been a clear and alarming pattern in the defendant's life. There are literally 3 active investigations of suspicious deaths that she is related to, and I want to be clear, Your Honor, we're not saying she's been charged in those, and we're not saying the court should treat her as such. However, she is related to each of those deaths, and it is alarming to the state. As we've said before, Your Honor, the defendant tried to mislead Rexburg law enforcement about the whereabouts of her children. In furtherance of that, she tried to convince a family friend to tell the Rexburg police that the children were with her in Arizona, even though they weren't. And that, Your Honor, the defendant has a history of defying court orders. In the child protection case associated with this case, she refused to produce her children as ordered. In a 2009 child custody case in Travis County, Texas, the defendant was found guilty of 7 different counts of civil contempt. Factor 5, the persons who agreed to assist the defendant in attending the court at the proper time. Again, Your Honor, that's pretty much limited to her new husband. And due to the fact that he and the defendant left so abruptly before, we don't have a lot of assurance from that. Factor 6, the nature of the current charge and any mitigating or aggravating factors that may bear on the likelihood of conviction and the possible penalty. In regard to those factors, Your Honor, the state would first point out the language of Idaho Code 18401, which states that it is a felony for anyone having a child under the age of 18 years dependent upon him or her for care, education, or support, who deserts such child in any manner whatever with intent to abandon it is a felony. In any manner whatever. That's a broad statute, Your Honor. It's broad because it deals with protecting children. So the aggravating factors bearing on the likelihood of conviction in this case include the following: that the defendant established a residence in Madison County, Idaho, with 2 minor children.
Okay, guys, I had to pause it here because I want you guys to pay close attention to what he's talking about next. I want you to watch her face.
Children. Those children ended up being reported as missing, and the defendant left the state without them. The defendant defied a court order to produce those children. One of those minor children is only 7 years old and has special needs which require medication and medical attention. Both of the minor children received Social Security benefits, and the defendant continued collecting the children's Social Security benefits into her own account, both after the last known sightings of the children in Madison County and continuing into Hawaii. And it's important to note that case law related to the desertion of a minor child and Idaho Code 19302 make it clear that this court has jurisdiction over acts of desertion both in here in Madison County and continuing into Hawaii. And the most aggravating factor, Your Honor, one that's quite frankly heartbreaking and is the reason why there's so much media attention, is that the children are still missing. And the defendant has not only misled law enforcement in their efforts to find the children, but she has completely and utterly refused to aid in any attempts to find the children, even before charges were filed. Another factor bearing on the likelihood of conviction is that Idaho Code 18403 and 18405 and case law related to the statute under which she was charged make it clear that proving abandonment or desertion is prima facie evidence that the desertion was willful, which makes it easier for the state to obtain a conviction. In regards to the sentence, should the defendant be convicted, and we believe she will, the defendant could face up to 30 years in prison, which is certainly motive to flee. As far as the defendant's prior criminal record, Your Honor, as we aren't aware of any criminal history. However, as we discussed earlier, she does have a history of defying court orders. Factor number 8, any facts indicating the possibility of violations of law if the defendant is released without restrictions. And Your Honor, we would just say past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. She's already disobeyed this court's order, and so we have no reason to believe that if she were released that she wouldn't continue in unlawful behavior. Factor 9, any other facts tending to indicate that the defendant has strong ties to the community and is not likely to flee the jurisdiction. At this point, Your Honor, with her 2 children missing, the defendant's only local tie is her husband, who again, as of a couple of weeks ago, she claimed that he lived in Hawaii. Factor 10, what reasonable restrictions, conditions, and prohibitions should be placed on the defendant's activities, movements, associations, and residences. Your Honor, should the bail be lowered, or should the defendant be able to make bail, we would ask for the following restrictions: that she be limited to living in Madison or Fremont County, Idaho, that she be required to wear some sort of GPS location device, and we're aware that those can be obtained from a bondsman, and that the defendant, if she does have a passport, that she surrender it to the court. In conclusion, Your Honor, the defendant established through her own behavior that she cannot be trusted to obey a court order or to appear at future court hearings. The state believes that bail should be confirmed where it is. We have no confidence that the defendant will stay in the area and appear for future hearings should she be released.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Ms. Elcock.
He did a pretty good job, I think. So I think he was just nervous, but I want you to watch Lori Vallow's face as the judge gives the defense another time up. That face, I think that got to me the most out of all the faces she makes, the smirks and everything else. This smirk basically said everything, everything that he had just said, she thought didn't matter, that she thinks she's above the law. This woman is not very likable, and I just do not care for this Lori Vallow. And if Chad was smart, oh my gosh, this is my personal opinion, guys. If Chad was smart, a smart man, he would run. Anyways, watch her face.
This is your motion. I'll give you the last word if you'd like it.
Thank you, Your Honor. As I indicated, Lori is more than willing to abide by any restriction that the court puts on her if the court so chooses to do so. The prosecutor stated that past behavior is essentially the best predictor of future behavior. I would point to the fact that Lori, in all of the decades that she has been alive, does not have a single criminal law violation whatsoever. It goes without saying that she also does not have any failure to appear in any criminal case. The prosecutor referenced the specific code language that she is charged with. I would note that this statute doesn't have a definition for abandon. However, the Child Protective Act does. And in those statutes, the prima facie evidence of abandonment is established when there hasn't been the parental relationship hasn't been maintained for a year. Pursuant to the
So you can see where she's trying to work for Lori and say, this parental abandonment, it doesn't count unless she's abandoned her children for a year. Now, guys, this isn't a part 3, 4, 5 or anything to the Lori Vallow case. This is just a solo story. But I wanted to know what you guys think, about this court appearance. The preliminary trial is coming up. So that will be a 2-day preliminary trial starting March 18th and 19th. So I really am not very good with law. I've been studying it lately. I am going over a lot a law, but each state's different as well, so it makes it even tougher for me. But like we can tell, there's going to be a fight, and it's going to be interesting to watch it play out. And I will be watching, those 2 days. So what was really interesting to me is the fact that Lori Vallow is sitting in court. She's smirking. Either she knows something we don't, which means her kids could possibly be alive, and she's just treating this like it's a circus, a good time. Or, she is cold and the kids are no longer here. We don't know. Now, when Lori first walked into court, which we weren't able to see when the judge addressed her, Lori got upset a little bit, you could tell, and she asked the judge, Farron Edmonds, to call her Miss Daybell. She really got over, I'm still shocked at how quick these two got over the deaths of their spouse. Now, guys, I've been really busy lately, but I was able to get this video thrown together for you. And the main thing, I know we're still looking for these children. Where are these children? It doesn't make sense that if the kids are okay, why not tell us that they're okay? So right now, investigators have acquired some subpoenaed school records of the children. Prosecutors they're really working hard to try to gather all the evidence they can. But it just seems to me that this just really makes it hard to focus on the children. And it almost seems maybe that's what she wants, a distraction. Everybody knows that the longer it is, the harder it is. It's so much harder to get the information and evidence and clues that you need in order to solve this case. Now, for those of you that are new to my channel, I do switch environments often, so my audio will kind of, go up and down some, or you might hear some background noise. Now, I did see JJ's grandparents in there, the Woodcocks, and I believe it looked like Brandon Boudreaux was there, which is the husband who had an attempt on his life that was married to Lori's niece, Melanie Boudreaux, at the time. Melanie has also been in court claiming that, Brandon was making this up, and it's because that they were going through a divorce. This case is absolutely insane, but we're all hoping that these kids are found. All right, guys, I really pushed my memory to the limits here to get this video out. So I want to say, guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Pray that they can find these kids, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.